be at the fight. I'm ready to back up everything I'm saying, and I'm through talking.
This gymnasium is packed. Absolutely packed.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Alumni Talk. I'm your host, Ricky Goins, Vice President of the Alumni Basketball League for Team Operations. As you know, this is our weekly podcast. We'll bring on ex-college basketball players, ex-pros, and we talk about their experience as a basketball player as well as being an alumni from their school. Remember to follow us. Our website is being updated. It'll be up soon, www.ablballing.com. Instagram at ABL Ballin, Twitter at the ABL USA, also YouTube and Apple Podcasts for this podcast. So today we have a special guest, Tamir Goodman. They used to call him the Jewish Jordan back in the day. He's familiar to a lot of people around the country, around the world, as well as in the area I'm in, which is DC. So Tamir, just to get into it, as I was prepping for this show, I was looking into a lot of things you've done. I want you to go into a little more detail about how did you start playing basketball? Like, what got you involved in the game?
Yeah, I fell in love with the game at a very young age because my older brothers played, and Coach Katz, who coached them, he actually lived right near us. So the thing that was unique about me is, most observant Jewish kids, especially back then, you think about playing Division I basketball is almost impossible as it is. And then like saying to a coach, you can't play from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, and you're wearing a kippah on your head that no one else has ever done before. Like, it's really impossible, but I had this dream. I fell in love with the game from my brothers. Coach lived near us and I started training with him. And thank God my family, my parents, even though no one else really had that vision or dream, they kind of said, we'll support you, even though it seemed impossible. So I fell in love with it because of my brothers, but then I met Coach, and together with the support of my family, even though it had never really been done in the Orthodox Jewish community, it just happened to be at the right place in the right time, and especially in Baltimore, because I started riding my bike to the playground, to the parks, and I was the only Jewish kid there, and yet I was embraced and respected from day one. And just growing up in Baltimore was the perfect community for all of this to happen for me. So, fell in love with the game, but I fell in love with it at the right place at the right time around the right people. Can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can, yeah.
Yeah. So what league were you in high school in Baltimore? What specific league was that? And then what made you transfer to Tacoma Park?
Right. So at first I was playing for Talmudical Academy. It was a very small Jewish school, only 60 boys in the whole high school. And when my story kind of became, when the media picked up on my story in 11th grade, I was ranked the 25th best player in the country. I was averaging almost 40 points a game, and I committed to Maryland. It was just too much for the school. Our gym, we only had a multi-purpose room basically that could hold like maybe 200 people. And there was like thousands of people trying to get in. So they started renting out different arenas, American University, Loyola, and we were selling out those like 3, 4, 5,000 people were coming, and coach, we were playing in a small private school league, but coach wanted us to play against better competition. So he started going out of the league and scheduling games against like Mount St. Joe's, better teams so that, we could play against better competition. But once, all that happened, the school said, we just we cannot accommodate you for your basketball dreams and the Judaism. So Tacoma Academy, it's actually a Christian school near Baltimore, but they're Seventh-day Adventists, so they don't play basketball on the Sabbath either. So I transferred my senior year to Tacoma, and even though I was the only Jewish kid in the whole school, I was very welcomed, and I was able to continue, my high school basketball without having to play on the Sabbath, which ended up being a great blessing for me academically, athletically, and socially. Like you mentioned, Tony Skinn was my teammate. Brian Wright, who's now the GM at the Spurs, was my teammate, and it was just. I think like we get our greatest growth amongst diversity sometimes, So for me, that I was always in a Jewish school my whole life, all the way up until 12th grade. And then 12th grade, I got to be in a whole new school, new environment, kids from different backgrounds and stuff, that ended up being a really big blessing for me. And till today, we're very good friends.
Yeah, I think there's a little delay because of the distance, but I'll just delay when I start talking, if that makes sense. So what went into, and I was looking, I know Maryland couldn't really, and I want you to talk about two things: your recruitment with Gary Williams. How was he with recruiting you? I think was it you were behind Steve Blake or same class or something, and then what led?
Yeah.
How did you end up?
Yeah.
How did you end up at Towson?
Yeah. So actually, Coach Billy Hahn was the one who recruited me the most. He's the one that came to watch me play. I'm still very close with him till today. Still have a very great relationship with him today. Steve Blake was 1 year older than me. Stevie Francis showed me around campus. I grew up in Maryland, so I wanted to play at Maryland, obviously. And I was already playing in the open runs, with Steve Blake and all those guys, Juan Dixon, Chris Wilcox, Lonnie Baxter. That was a very special group of guys. But as time came closer for me to play at Maryland, it just wasn't going to work out, with the Sabbath and everything. And I said, no problem, coach. I understand it. I respect you guys. And I'm all about relationships. So I walked out of there on good terms. They ended up winning the national championship. And then Towson called and said, hey, we read about what happened with you at Maryland and everything in the paper. Maybe we could accommodate you. And actually Towson managed to change the schedule. So I was able to live out my dream, which was seen as impossible, playing Division I basketball without playing on the Jewish Sabbath or any Jewish holidays. And I'm forever grateful that I got to live out my dream.
So you get to Towson. I was reading that you were the first freshman to start there in like 13 years or something. And things were going well, and you had a coaching transition. And if I'm not mistaken, the coach brought in Jamal Gilchrist. I think he transferred into Towson, who's actually, ironically, a friend of mine. But just kind of talk about like what that was like, actually playing Division I, keeping within your religious ordinance, and just that experience altogether.
Yeah, it was so amazing. It was a dream come true. I'm playing Division I basketball. I'm rooming with a Muslim basketball player named Muhammad. So I'm like a Jewish kid that went from a all Jewish school to graduating from a Christian school. Now I'm rooming with a Muslim basketball player, and like we're just proving to the whole world that basketball brings people together. I won the coaches award as a freshman. They told me they were going to build a team around me going into my sophomore year. I made Dean's List, even though I barely passed the SATs. Like everything was like coming together for me. But unfortunately, spring break, I heard the bad news that coach and his entire staff got fired, and the new coach, it wasn't going to work with him and my religion, I guess, and Sabbath. And I tried to make it work as much as possible. And a bad incident happened in the locker room, and I never played another game of college basketball again. So Coach David Blatt, who coached LeBron, he coached the Cavaliers, he was coaching in Israel at the time. And he said, we heard about what happened. Do you want to come turn pro in Israel? And I said, yeah, I would love to. So that's how I got over here to Israel.
And I saw that you had some, was it like knee issues? You played about, was it a couple years, and then you had knee issues. How
I, I played set. I played 7 years total, but I lost my knee in the first year. I lost it. I kept on trying to. Just when everything was great and I was playing pro and everything was coming together for me, I lost my knee, but I didn't quit. I thought I was going to be able to do it, and I fought for 7 years, Ricky. I did every surgery, every rehab, pushed myself to tears, and then the seventh year, I was like in pre. I don't know if you know Todd Golden. He's coaching at University of Florida right now. He's the head coach at Florida. He was my teammate, and I just looked at him and I'm like, I'm done. I can't. Like, I'm done. I tried everything. I'm done, man. God doesn't want me to play basketball anymore. I can't do it. I just got nothing left. And the doctor's like, you never want to see me again. Like, you got to stop. You got to stop. And, I could never do my favorite thing in the world again from that day on. I could never play ball again.
Oh man, it's just that's just so hard, to hear, because people don't realize how difficult it is. I mean, you went from a mid-major conference to professional basketball. I mean, that's after only 2 years. That's hard to fathom, that you did that. But I want you to talk about one thing specifically: playing basketball in Israel. As we know, some of the turmoil that goes on and things that happen on the book. How, like were you ever? And I know you live there. You live there now, correct? Um,
Correct.
like how were you just wondering about, and I think this was going like the Iraq War and a whole bunch of stuff was going on, like when you went back to play, like what was it like trying to just survive, feel comfortable enough, to survive, not worry about some of the things that happen in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think once anybody comes to Israel, they notice right away that the media there's a lot of exaggerating in the media and stuff about Israel. That was 20 years ago, but today, it's pretty clear that Israel is one of the most sought after places to play outside of the NBA because the weather's great, the people are great, the league is great. All the GMs, the NBA is watching very closely what's going on in the Israeli league. So even though the media a lot of times makes Israel seem like a negative place, it's actually like a dream place to play for Americans.
No, that's really good to hear, because a lot of people don't know. We only hear about what we see on the news. And a lot of times, agents, I've heard agents tell guys, we got to be careful about the Middle East and this, that, and the other. But I'm glad to hear that from somebody that lives there, that experienced it, that can actually say, what it's like, in terms of being able to earn it. And now, so back, back, what you have? You can hear me?
Sorry?
You can hear me?
Yes.
So what I was going to go back to was your time at Towson really quickly. So who were like some of the rivals, that you remember, that, like, who was you guys' rival in the league?
Well, I just say some of the games for us that were really good well, not rivals, but really games that stand out for us were Michigan at Michigan. That's how I saw Bernard. I saw Bernard on here, Bernard Robinson.
Bernard, yes, my guy.
Yeah, we won the co-MVP together, the Capital Classic. Yep. And then, playing against them at Michigan, we almost upset them at Michigan. I think we either lost by 1 or 2. That was like, I'm 40 now, but that's like a game that, well, first of all, it was great to see him there, and, a Baltimore guy. And that was like a warm welcome to see him there. It was fun. But like, that's a game that, like, you'll always remember, you'll always remember, man, we had a chance to beat Michigan at Michigan. Playing, these are just some of the moments, because I guess I'm like I'm a relationship guy. Like, I love Mike Sweetney from high school, and then getting a chance to play against them at Georgetown. Like, that was a special moment, I would say. For me, it's more like those type of moments rather than like traditional rivalries. Just, I say experiences playing against guys who I was close with in high school, and then seeing them in college, because when you're in high school and stuff, it's like you're still dreaming about that moment. And then, hey, we're here, guys, man. Look where we're playing. Look where we're at, man. We did it, type of thing. Look, those were special moments, and thank God for those moments.
That Capital Classic game, and this is true, and this is the first Capital Classic game I ever watched. I was about 13 years old, and I remember my dad saying, "Hey, check out this game. This is Mike Sweetney about to go to Georgetown. That's the kid." He was telling me about all you guys. I think David Hawkins might have played too. Like,
Yes,
And I
yeah.
remember watching that game. I remember seeing you with the Yom Kippur. I was like, man, like this guy's really out here. I think somebody said you were supposed to go to like I remember hearing all that, man. So how was it like? Like, 'cause a lot of times what happens is when you're in a smaller league, people try to say like, well, you're just a big fish in a small pond. You're not really that good, right? So to get out there in the Capital Classic and to be able to show with other All Americans, future NBA guys, how good you really were. What was that feeling?
Well, first of all, you get to train for a week before the game with the guys, and I just enjoyed every single second of that week because I just wanted to play against the best, learn from the best, and I really enjoyed that that week. And another funny story that happened was like the day of the game, we had a shoot around, and the Wizards were coming off the floor while we were coming on the floor, and Rod Strickland came over to me. He was playing on the Wizards at the time, and he was like, "Hey, are you the Jewish kid that I read about?" I was like, maybe, I was like so in awe that he recognized me. And I'm like, I guess. He's like, well, good, because I'm coming back to watch you play tonight. Like, that's what he said. And then when the game started, I saw him there at half court. I ran over to him. I said, man, thank you. It means the world to me that you came here tonight. And I went over to my high school coach, and he's like, yeah, just don't take any extra dribbles, and you're going to be all right tonight. So I went in the game like that. And, I always think about like how I'm like a pass first, like how am I going to help my teammates? And there were so many great guys to play with that night that it just made my job easy. And then when they said, I won the co-MVP, I was like, wow, man, thank God. And it's another one of those moments that I always remember, but it's nothing I got to take credit for. Is we played Bernard Robinson, Hawkins, Mike Sweetney. Like, I mean, these guys, it's a point guard's dream to play with these guys. He made the job really easy.
Yeah, no, man. Rod Strickland is a buddy of mine, and he was my favorite player growing up. So I mean, if that had been me, man, I would have tried to go for 50 or something. but no,
Yeah. Look how many years ahead of the game he was. When you watch the highlights and then what guys are doing now. I mean, he was the future. If you think about like Michael Jackson and singing, he was like 30, 40 years ahead of, where it's the same thing. That's when I think of Rod Strickland, like he was so far ahead like of the game, with his movements and
no question, man. He was a dog. He was a dog on that basketball court. I tell you that.
Yeah, special, very special.
But I do got two more things to ask you about before we go. One, I also heard in a documentary that you dealt with dyslexia. And how was it? And I'm curious, just for my own like edification, how did you overcome that? Or how are you still dealing with that?
Yeah, I don't know if you could ever overcome it. It's still very hard for me to read and write and do basic arithmetic. But what happens is when you're dyslexic, because you're always compensating in your brain, other parts of your brain are always working that for average person, typical person, they're not exercising those muscles. So like for me, I'm always exercising those muscles, and that brings out the creativity in me. So like on the basketball court, I was like, I could see things that other people aren't seeing as far as getting them the ball when they don't even realize they're open. Like that's where I got my confidence. I got on the floor. I would just tell the guys, hey, just be ready. I'm going to get you the ball tonight, just run the floor. And then like with my inventions and stuff, it's like the same thing. It all comes from like, yeah, it's hard for me to read and write, but God bless me in other areas. And that's where I focus on, the creative side of my head. Like, for example, with my net, like this is the first ever antimicrobial and moisture wicking net. I only thought of it because I'm dyslexic. So when the ball goes through the hoop, it disinfects the ball from germs and bacteria. And you could also put any logo you want on the net. So, we just signed here in Jerusalem with like the biggest bank because in-game sponsorship, like every time there's an instant replay, your logo's on there. So this is changing, keeping players safer, allowing them to play better because the ball is less slippery. You don't want to play with a slippery. It keeps the ball 11 times more dry. And then the advertising component of like what you could customize, for your own team or league, but you could like also make money off the net because companies want that real estate. And we signed with Dick's Sporting Goods nationwide. Wow. So, it's all from dyslexia.
Wow.
And I just think the main point is people in life. Yeah, everybody has their challenges, but God doesn't give us our challenges to knock us down. He gives us our challenges to help us find our true potential.
100%. And I was going to ask you what you have going on. That was my next question. You spoke about the net, but if you want to go further than that or anything else you have going on, let us know.
Yeah, so I got the net. I'm very involved in sports tech, fan engagement, metaverse, technology stuff. And I do a lot of camps and clinics, speaking engagement, a lot of cultural diversity clinics, bringing people together of different backgrounds, because basketball has proven itself more than any other platform in the world to unite people. So I'll be coming down to Baltimore December 4th to run a unity clinic. And I've been on my 9th year here up at Paul Jerusalem in the front office. So we have a really good team. We play in Europe and Israel. Amari Stoudemire was a part owner and played with us for 3 seasons. And I guess here I'm kind of like the bridge, because a lot of the American guys heard about me or whatever, and then they come over in Israel, and they know that they know I could be a home away from home for them type of thing with my family. And so I'm always involved in basketball, bettering the game, helping the game, giving back, and technology side of the game. I'm forever grateful and blessed that God has allowed me to continue to be involved in the game I love, even though I haven't been able to play for so many years now.
Man, that's great to hear, man. I'm so glad you chose to speak with us. Me and you definitely stay in contact about things that, we make it work on together. So I definitely appreciate you stopping through. Appreciate everybody that checked in. Again, remember, Alumni Basketball League's coming with more games 2023, www.ablballing.com. And this podcast will be on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again, Tamir, for having me, man. And let's stay in contact.
God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. God bless.